and welcome to a very, very exciting edition. We love local, we love books, and of course we love families and kids and giving you the tools, the tips and the tricks to raise better families. And today I am graced in our Baby Yum Yum studio with the amazing, spectacular Noami Holdt. Welcome to Baby Yum Yum. You have just launched a book.
I have. Thanks so much, Amanda. It is awesome to be
the
here.
Book. We love this book. We love this
Yay.
book. Now, I first came into contact with you last year when we were both presenting at an event. And I must say, I was truly blown away by how personal your story was and how you used so many of your own personal examples to demonstrate how to solve issues in life, which was absolutely amazing. And now, wow, was I surprised when this book was delivered to me. It is called Bounce: How to Raise Resilient Kids and Teens, the simple and effective guide to parenting you were not expecting, by Noami Holdt. Loving it. How is the book launch going so far?
It's been an amazing experience,
Yeah.
a whirlwind. So much has happened. I'm very grateful for Pan Macmillan, who have been fantastic, every single one of them, just in helping launch and all the events. But it's been a surreal experience.
Absolutely love that. I love that.
You walk into I never knew what it would feel like, and it still kind of doesn't feel real, walking to an exclusive bookstore somewhere, and
There's your picture. Oh my gosh, your book, that's amazing. It's like living the dream. Everyone wants to write a book, but when you've got a great publisher behind you, it just makes things so much easier.
100%.
So now tell me, why did you decide to write this particular book on this topic?
I think it's such an important topic. I mean, the last few years that we've had have really shown us that, man alive, we need resilience to get through the world that we live in. And we know that the rates of anxiety and depression in all age groups has skyrocketed, and we are seeing behaviors in kids and teens. And of course, we know behavior is just a message. We're seeing things on steroids, bullying, exclusion, the meltdowns, the whining, the withdrawal, as I said, the anxiety, different types of anxiety. So you name it, we are seeing it.
Absolutely.
And really just a book, and the aim was to give a practical, not one of these, I mean, for one, I love books, I devour them, but when it's got too many big words and coming from it too much of a scientific,
you switch off. I quite agree with you.
No, my brain can't deal with this after a hectic parenting day, right? Because it's
Very
like,
much so.
it's school, it's rush, it's life. So at the end of the day, by the time I want to read a book, I can't. My brain just doesn't have the capacity.
And you know what I love about this? I love you speaking about practical examples, and you bring in your own experience of kickboxing. You bring in, your own things about the series you're watching on Netflix. So real topical, today's type of things that we can all relate to, which makes it so much easier. But before I get into the questions behind the book, there was I think it was actually on the first page of the book, where you actually mentioned, and you said in this first part of the book, you said here, it's actually a quote from someone, let me find it here. It says, "Safety is not in the absence of threat, it's in the presence of connection."
Oh.
How true is that?
I get cute. That's one of my, I've got lots of favorite quotes. I put them throughout the book, but that is one of my favorites. And I literally get goosebumps when I read that, because that's what it's all about. Like, the world is crazy out there. And as parents, we're wired to just want to protect our kids and to keep them from everything, but we can't. But the best news is that the greatest safety that they can experience and feel is in the safety of the relationship. And if they know that there is a strong, deep, and connected relationship in place, they can get through anything. Because in life, we can get through any storms if we know we are not alone. And there is someone, some adult, some caregiver who is there for me and who can guide me through it. Like those words, I'm not alone, and I feel safe there, without judgment, without criticism, unconditionally loved.
Unconditionally loved, absolutely.
Which is, of course, we say, of course I love my child, but that to really think about, does our child feel that love without feeling like they need to be anything other than exactly what they are? That's safety.
And I think for me it's amazing. It actually almost makes you take a step away from your phone and really connect, because it's the quality of time you're spending with your kids, not the quantity, and it's not sitting there on your phone. It's actually connecting with them and delving deep into their psyche and what's going on in their lives. And I think that as parents, we really need to do that. We need to step back and not give them the walls. Let's rather teach them to build the walls around us. And what is that saying? Don't give someone don't give someone the fish, teach them to fish. And that's really what you're doing essentially. Which goes on to my next question about, as parents, you spoke about how we just want to protect and look after our kids, and kids today have become, I don't even know what the word is, so unworldly and soft almost, I suppose. They don't know how to maneuver their way through the hardship. But how do you find the balance between looking after your kids and protecting them, but also giving them the life skills to go out and take on the challenges and the failures and the tragedies that come with life as well?
I think that it's just such an awesome question, because we often think, especially in terms of the more gentle parenting approaches, like, oh, you're just raising, how can you do this? You often get quite like, oh, you're just raising sissies that way, which is absolutely not true. The difference is, if as parents we're going to go out and we are going to do everything for our kids, protect them, mollycoddle them, we are not actually helping them at all. But going back to the safety of that relationship, our kids need to know that we are there for them emotionally, and we create those boundaries in an empathetic way.
Correct,
but boundaries in which they feel so safe that they can explore on their own. I always think of riding a bicycle.
Yes.
Like, we want to be there, but we've got to let go of that bicycle.
Absolutely.
We've got to we can't keep, if you keep holding on to that bicycle,
they're never going to go.
They're never going to learn to ride a bike. And when we can't let go of our kids, they end up becoming adults who are dependent, anxious, and depressed because they can't do it on their own. And when they do fall, it's like, I can't get up. So we need to be able to hold that safe space for them. And that means, there's a very big difference between softy and the sensitive child. So we want to constantly be in tune with our child's sensitive side. And I want to on this just bring up something that comes up so often. But this generation, and we know that it very much came, that boys don't cry, stop crying, boys don't cry kind of thing. We're just raising sissies if we let boys. Boys are human.
Correct.
Human beings cry. It's therapeutic. It's healing. And if we don't let our boys cry, and then we wonder why we've got so many angry and depressed men in the world. Our boys are human. They've got to cry. So we've got to hold the space for our kids' sensitivity and the emotions without judging those emotions. And, here's the big thing, being able to tolerate those emotions comfortably. The problem is that often when our children experience big emotions, we're like, whoa, I can't deal with this, because our big emotions weren't dealt with growing up.
100%. Absolutely. And I think it's an inherent thing. As parents, I think as soon as your baby pops out, you've got that guilt immediately from that point of view. Nothing's ever going to be good enough, or I think we need to deal with our own issues instead of putting it onto our kids, and I think that's what makes resilience in ourselves as well.
Yes.
And you spoke about somewhere here, you said, I can't remember the wording, something about how we're all on a path or something, but life is a journey. I can't remember what the exact terminology was. And that is so right, because life is a journey. You have to deal with everything that is around you at the same time. So tell us about you, going back to you. What is your background? Are you a psychologist? Are you a mom? What are you?
All of the above. So actually, I started working with kids and teens when I was about 13 years old, like running holiday clubs and so on. And then I went into education. So I studied education and actually majored in art. And
wow, I love that. Did you draw the beautiful little squiggles in here?
I did a lot of them. Some of them. So Pan Max also got a great illustrator. So between the two of us, we did all the.
See, so that art course really paid off for you, right? Thanks,
Thanks, Delis. And then I went into education for 7 years, and then decided to do my master's in psychology. So that's it. And of course, a mom to two amazing kids, both empaths, and I really think that most parents will agree that our kids are our wisest teachers. I've had so many professors, lecturers, geniuses, no ways. And I loved what you said just now, is that it's about us. And so often as parents, we think our stuff is all done. We think we've done our growing, and then we have kids. And then we realize,
everything changes.
Oh my word.
From day to day.
So much growing and so much healing, and interactions between ourselves and our kids highlight every day the things we still need to work on.
And we've all got a lot of stuff to work on.
We've got a lot of stuff, but for me, isn't it awesome to have that opportunity to become our best selves, because there's a relationship that's highlighting what we need to do.
I completely agree with you on that one. And just as you think you've got your kids understood, something changes and you got to change yourself as well. It's like literally a mirror of what's going on inside of you at the moment.
100%.
you've now launched this amazing book, and you're in Joburg at the moment, and from what I heard just now, you are on a whirlwind tour of all of these different tours, all of these different schools and facilities and institutions. What has been the takeaway for you from talking to these people? So obviously you stand up, you talk about your book, and they come back and they give you comments. It was a great talk. It was a terrible talk. You're terrible, Naomi. That was amazing. I learned so much. What's been the general consensus? Are people finding the book helpful, or what are they taking away from it?
Well, they all say, where do I get my energy from? Which I just laugh about.
Love that. Love it. Love it.
I tend to bounce a lot. When I go and do a talk and someone puts like a standing mic, I'm like, no, that's not going to work for me.
See, that's why we vibe so well, because we're both all over the place. I love it.
All over the place. Give me that handhold.
And you know, that's actually something in the book that I love as well. You actually refer to, you bring in the story of Winnie the Pooh and all the different characters, and that's how it describes people, like whether you're a piglet or a poo or an eel. And we're bouncing all over. So
totally
together. Absolutely.
But mostly that parents really, what they're appreciating is, yes, the examples, so the personal example, my own parenting, and the practicalities, and also that it's a human to human book. And because of that, and it's an easy to read book.
Very
because
easy.
We are like so literally mind numb by the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But that you can take it, and also that the principles that I suggest aren't things like, oh my word, what do I remember A, B, like, what do I, no, it's like stuff that all of us can infuse straight away into the next minute of our interactions with our children. And parents have really appreciated that. So that's and I've been so humbled by that.
Wow. I think if you learn anything throughout the day when it comes to parenting, you learn so many different things. But if you can just take away one lesson in the day that you can carry on working and honing, you're doing an amazing job. I mean, there's no way you can do every single thing that's suggested to you, but it's that one thing that you find that really just resonates with you, and you just expand on that, which is so important. And that's what I love about the book.
And that's exactly what I say, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because we know that whole thing about if an airplane takes off at just 1 degree difference,
absolutely,
it'll land up in a completely different continent. And if we focus on just one small thing in our parenting that we want to work on or change every day, in a year's time we're going to be in a completely different space in the relationship with our children.
Absolutely. But you have to realize that there's something to work on, most important, and that's, I think, a hard step for some parents to take, that they need to work on things, because no one wants to admit that we're not perfect. So you got to step back and take that step.
But that part alone is so important for our kids. It's for us to own, I'm not perfect, you don't have to be perfect, because it's a gift of giving our children the gift of humanness. And that I'm just so big on that.
The gift of humanness. The gift of humanness. I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. That is amazing. Talk to me about very sensitive children. So, some of us do have very sensitive kids. I have one very sensitive child. If you say boo, then something happens. It's just a huge tantrum, or it's a meltdown, or something like that. Give me your top tip to build resilience in those very sensitive children.
Okay, so I have got one too.
Okay.
But first I want to, can I say one thing about sensitive children?
Yes.
Is often we focus on the meltdowns, on that, because our sensitive children are phenomenal human beings. They are so perceptive, and yes, it can be challenging to parent them, and we've got to take a lot of deep breaths. And one of the most important things that we can do is actually our own regulation and self-care, because we need to make sure that we can show up for them when they're having these big overwhelming moments, because remember, they can't control it.
Absolutely.
In the space of their brain that is reacting is their survival space. So us saying, stop it now, go away, like that's only going to make them feel worse, going to make them feel more isolated and more alone.
Correct.
So number one top tip is to remember you are raising an incredible human being who is an asset in the world. I wish we had more sensitive kids, because these are the kids who are world changers. Like, bottom line, just hold on to that through the storms. I've got a few tips. Number one, when that's first, self-care. Okay. You cannot. A lot of self-regulation and breathing, and I talk about some breathing tips in the book.
Love it.
And my kids and I both, we do them often, and we joke about them, the milkshake breathing, and if they can see I'm getting flustered about anything, they say, Mom, milkshake breathing!
That's very cute. I love that.
It's very cute. And then I know, I can hear the stomping down the passage, and I know there's a meltdown coming, and coming to find
there's
me.
A storm,
So and also to remember, when they come to us with their big overwhelming emotion, that is like, wow, they feel safe enough with me to be their absolutely most vulnerable selves, to be melting down and falling apart. And then what we need to be, so along with that, now background flashing mantra, this is not personal. I can't be triggered, this is not personal. Okay, I'm doing my breathing. Remembering that all the time.
Not personal.
And here it is. And just know that your next an hour is probably not going to be what you had planned. You can take those things off the to-do list. What your child most needs. And in long-term interest. Because remember, regulation is one of the skills that cannot develop in isolation. So a child can't just learn to regulate. When we punish them or we put them away, we say, just go deal with this on your own, and I'll be here when you can be a smiley face again. Firstly, we're telling them that not all of them is acceptable and worthy. But secondly, their brain actually can't grow that wiring to learn to regulate. We learn to regulate in co-regulation. That means for me to learn to regulate, I need a regulated adult or other person who can be in my presence while my brain calms itself. And so that for me is amazing, that we have to realize that. And to just hold that space, be in our child's presence when that storm is going wild. Not to react, not to try and say things to make them feel better, because in that state of survival, literally, you're not getting anywhere. Step one is regulate. That means help them calm. Step two, which would be later on, would be relate, would be something like to say like, sure, that was hard, like to go through that, or wow, you seemed so upset by that. But at that time, you can forget that, not going anywhere.
Absolutely.
Literally just be there. And often our highly sensitive children, they don't like want us to hold them, but they want to know that we are there. And by the way, this is for our highly sensitive teens as well. Like, this is just to know we are a presence. And I remember how powerful, and that is all I keep doing with my daughter, remembering my role as a parent is to grow a brain. That is what we're doing. Our children's brains are growing until their mid-20s. All the skills, mid-20s. And until then, that's really our role as parents, is to help their brains grow. By just being in that space, not reacting to it, not taking it personally, being the regulated adult, I'm helping my child's brain grow. And it hit me so powerfully, the impact. And I was just doing this because this is what we do.
Yes.
And then, you know those Mother's Day, like they have to finish the sentences and they bring you this pretty little card. And I remember she brought hers home last year. And I was, it like really hit me, the power of it. And you know, when it says like, I love my mom because, hers said, I love my mom because she helps me calm down.
Oh my word.
And I was like, oh, goosies,
that's
all
like
that holding.
Lump in the throat. Oh my goodness, that just affirms your job as a mother and what you're doing right. I mean, that is amazing for her to actually realize that as well, that she's got that regulator who's there to sit and see it out with her. Wow, sure, that's taking it all in, absolutely. And now in the world, I mean, there's so much negativity at the moment. The world almost just feels like it's falling apart. How do we deal with this with our children? Because we want to shield them from the terrible horrors of the world, but at the same time, we want them to be aware of what's going in the world, because that helps them grow. How do we deal with that with our kids? How do we tell them too much? Do we tell them too little? How much should we be telling them? How do we protect them?
So often when it comes to things like that, which is a really important topic because there's so many big things happening in the world, but the best is to be guided by them. So if that, yes, there are some things we don't want them to find out from the friend at school. So then it's maybe to have a conversation and just age appropriate. That is the key here, age appropriate.
Absolutely.
So, and then you say, okay, well, how do I know what age appropriate is? Here's the thing. If you are connected enough and you know your child well enough, you are likely to recognize what they, not what the average 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 14-year-old can have, what your child, because all our children can process more. But you see, the problem is that often we think that they need to know this, and we tell our children something, and maybe cognitively they're intelligent and can understand that, but emotionally they can't process it. So then it sits as a heavy weight on them. And we've got to be so aware, because even the things that we as adults may talk about, our kids are sitting in the back seat or at the dining room table, they're absorbing it all and they can't process it.
Correct.
So it creates anxiety within them. So age appropriately to explain to our kids maybe big things that are happening in the world, if there's a good chance that they're going to hear it from someone at school, so that when they do, they've kind of heard our context first.
Of course.
And I want to go again back to the safety of the relationship where we started, because within that, our kids know they can come to us and talk to us about anything, that we won't react, respond, go, whoa! That we'll be able to give them the information that they want and that they need.
And that's appropriate.
That's appropriate. And I know that, and that's why I keep going back to relationship, because over the years, when my kids have heard something that maybe they shouldn't have, or seen something that they shouldn't have, they come to me and say, Mom, like I saw this, or I heard this. Can you tell me more, or can you help me understand this? I'm like, awesome. Of course, when we do it, like, where did you say that? And then they're going to and not tell us the next time. Yes. So we've got to be like so aware of our response.
But it's creating that safe space again where they feel empowered enough to come and talk to you and to guide you and to take your opinions and advice from you. And something that someone always gave me, and for me this has been an amazing tool to have, in order to, when you're not sure how to address certain topics with children, is to actually ask them what they know.
Yes.
So instead of just putting all your information on it, because they might have a completely different topic about it. Like my daughter came to me and she said to me, Mommy, what's a virgin? And here's a little child of 6. I'm like, now, should I have this sex conversation with her? So I turned around and I said, what do you think a virgin is? She said to me, well, I know that there's a cocktail called a virgin cocktail, and I know that the virgin, so she gave me a completely different thing that wasn't related to a sexual environment at all. And that's what I can continue talking about. You don't go the places that you don't need to go when it's irrelevant or when it's not the appropriate time. So I think find out what they know, find out what they're feeling, and then obviously build on that essentially, as opposed to going completely off on something that you think they're talking about in their head, right?
100%.
Absolutely.
So always going to be guided by them. It's even in the sex talk. We often like, oh, do I just tell them everything?
Do I just buy them a book and give it to them?
No.
Okay.
I think my sex talk was like my mom dropping off a book about hamsters. Like that was it. Let me tell you, it was not really, it was not great. Please don't do that. So it is really about being guided by their questions, and wait for them to ask the questions. But they need to know we'll give them the truthful answers.
Of course, I think that's important, very much so, very important thing. Now you spoke about your own self-care tips, how you need to obviously have a full glass and with beautiful clear water in it so that you can pour, out what you need to your kids. How can you pour out empty, dirty sediment out of your cup? What are your top tips for self-care?
I think we need to, so often we hear the word self-care and you're like, oh my word, there's someone's going on about self-care again. I just don't have time. Like, come on, in a real world, like there's 20 things, my kids catch me or no.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we've really got to reframe, what does self-care mean? What is the best gift? I asked this time, when are you your best self? When I'm my best self is when I can show up and be the best mother that I can. So when I'm my best self is when I have done something for myself. Like Absolutely. Whether that is spent 20 minutes reading, whether it's hugging my dog for an extra 10 minutes, having a cup of coffee with a friend, going off to a spa and treating myself to a massage, or having a gym session, a rebounding session, a yoga session. Then when I come back and I'm interacting with my kids, I'm going to be more mindfully present. And you mentioned that presence and that disconnection.
Yes.
And that is so important, because as parents, we are present but not present at all.
Absolutely. And you see it all the time. Just go to a restaurant. You see it around all the time.
So if we want to really show up and engage with our kids, for them to feel the benefits, we've got to realize it's not a nice to have if I get time for. It's an essential that we have to do if we can't do it for ourselves, because a lot of mothers are like, and parents are like, no, not for me, my kids. This is the best thing to do for your kids, is to prioritize that. And I use the example of, it was actually this December, we were away with some friends, the mom and I, we went off to the spa, left the dads in charge. We were gone for 3 hours because we had a cocktail afterwards.
Of course, yeah.
We got back and the dads were like, where were you? That's your pink ticket's done for the year. And they were joking, of course.
Were they really? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take a few more.
Many a true way said in jest, yeah.
And the kids were like, where have you been? It's been so long. But that evening, all of us were like doing these dances and shows on the grass. We all ended up, the moms jumped into the pool, clothes on, and the kids were like, wow!
What cool moms!
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my daughter said to me, Mom, you must go again to the spa for 3 hours.
So you know what you're getting for your next present, right? A full-day spa voucher. Thanks.
Because when we input into ourselves, we can show up and be the best parents.
I could not agree more. Absolutely. I think that's so pertinent to remember that. So I have 2 more questions. My second last one is, talk to me about parents that are going through a divorce. How do you handle that with your kids? Because there's no way you can protect them when you're going through a divorce. You need them to have the information, and you need them to be, you need to be level-headed as a parent. How do you protect your kids in that sort of environment?
I'm going to go back to the place we begin with all parenting aspects. And whether it's a divorce or a trauma or anything that we're going through, we have to begin with ourselves. Like, so often parents will bring their kids and say, I'm going through this, or this has happened in our lives, like, you need to help the child. Be like, where are you? Like, because so often we don't. It's all about the child, but our children feed off of us. So if you are going through a divorce, make sure that you are getting the support and the help that you need. And most often, when we're going through something really difficult, sometimes it needs to be more than just our friends. Because it really helps to have that third external party sometimes who is going to make us just do the work in some uncomfortable areas, the growing that we have to do. So yes, maybe it is just your support network or friends and family, but sometimes if you need to reach out to a professional, I think part of what we also need to do for our children is take away the stigma of mental health. Like, really, we are in a world
Naomi,
where
100%.
everybody is struggling. There is, like, just reach out and get the support you need, because that's how we best help our children.
And what about the sentiment of, you know, and it's very old-fashioned to think this way, but I don't believe it. I think it's definitely changed. You know what I'm going to say? It's better for children to stay in a home with married parents than, you know, for your parents to be divorced. I mean, that is really an old stigma. And again, that's going back to resilience. Because you're thinking, I'm not going to get divorced because I want to keep the kids safe and protected. But again,
so
it doesn't work.
Actually, we know that research tells us the opposite. And I can tell you from the kids and the teens I work with, those ones whose parents have stayed together for the sake of the children, and then when they leave home, it's like, cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Well, those children are loaded with guilt that I was responsible for my parents' unhappiness because they stayed in a relationship in which they weren't happy. For me, that is an unfair guilt to put on our kids. That's number one. Number two is our children learn everything in life through what we role model. That's how the wiring of their brain grows. So if our children haven't grown up in a home where they haven't witnessed what a healthy relationship should look like, it's going to be exceptionally hard for them to go out and develop healthy relationships. And we know that that is such a key source of resilience and happiness. Absolutely. Is that social support that we get in healthy relationships. So they're likely to go from one relationship to another. And of course, then it's self-esteem involved, it's confidence. Wow, we're just looking at this knock-on, probably resulting in anxiety and depression. So it is better for children to be in two homes where where they can witness a healthy relationships and have happy parents. Because of course, when we're desperately unhappy and depressed, we can't fully show up for our kids and be there for them. So of course it's going to be hard, and it's going to be an adjustment, and there's going to be tears, and there's going to be grief, because it's a grief process as well. But it is far better for them to know that their parents are happy, and to be able to go on in life and I know what a good healthy relationship should be. I know what healthy conflict is.
Someone said to me the other day, when you get divorced, you're not breaking apart your family, you're actually building a family.
Absolutely. And going back to what you asked me about, what some top tips, I think that one of the things, just to be that when parents don't seek their own personal support, so often one party in particular, there are huge, whether it's, I use the word hate because that is how a lot of parties will present hate towards the other. But if we don't work through that, unfortunately, children are in the middle and they become the victims. Because everything I then say about my partner, every time my ex-partner, every time I answer the phone about, my kids are picking up, absorbing that.
And they're sponges.
They are sponges, and they end up being so highly anxious. I don't want to say this to mom about dad, or to dad, or don't want to go here with dad because it'll upset mom. And what if mom says this about dad, or dad says this about... Can you feel the dysregulation and the anxiety within me just saying that? And that is what our kids pick up. It's not fair on them.
And that does go back to your whole point about resilience, about how we are giving them the tools that they need to cope in the real world, by giving them solid foundations and by being role models for them and building their esteem in the right sort of ways. this book for me, it's really, it opened my eyes to a whole bunch of things because, as you said in the very beginning, it's practical, it's simple, it's a great, easy read. There's cute little squiggles and drawings. There's great sayings in it. And this for me is really, it's going to go on the top of my bookshelf because I really feel that everyone should get a copy of this book. I think it makes you a better person, it makes your family a better person, and it will really empower your kids at the same time. Tell me, Naomi, where can we get copies of this book?
So you can get copies of this book at any good bookshop in South Africa. So whatever that may be for you, walk into the bookstore, they should have them, or you can get them online.
Brilliant. And how do we find out more about you? Do you have socials? What do you have?
I do have socials.
Okay, yes.
So I am a lot on Facebook,
yeah,
and I'm on Instagram too, but of course some posts are more for one platform than the other.
Yes.
I've also got a website, so naomiholdt.com. Otherwise, Naomi Holdt, Psychologist and Speaker on Instagram and Facebook.
Amazing. Well, Naomi, we can only but wish you the best of luck with this book. It is phenomenal, and we hope that you reach for the stars and it becomes a #1 international bestseller. That's what we want, right?
Oh, thank you, Amanda. That would be so awesome. And, yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to our viewers as well. We hope that you go out and you get your copy of your book. And we do have an exciting giveaway coming up as well, but we'll let you know about that a little bit later in one of our other posts. I think, just to close off, Naomi, give me some parting words of inspiration and motivation for parents out there who are dealing with kids that are going through hard times.
I think the most important thing, or there's a few things, but just this parenting journey is messy. The world is a hard place for us and for our kids. Mm-hmm. When our kids are going through a hard time, it's our human nature to want to fix. But it's our primary human need to be understood. When our kids are going through the dark, they need to just know they're not alone and that we're sitting in it with them. Because when they know they're not alone, they actually can find the strength to get their way out of it.
Sure. Powerful. I love that. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you to all of our viewers, and we will see you again soon.
Thanks, Amanda. Cheers.
Bye.